This is a TIG welder. TIG is an acronym for tungsten inert gas. This can weld steel, stainless steel, and aluminum materials. So first, turn it on. Then this is argon gas, which is a neutral gas that we use. Some pressure gauges, and you want to make sure you face away from the gauges when you turn on the tank, in case they fracture. So you turn it on, then you can see here there's pressures. So this gauge shows you how much pressure is in the tank. This gauge shows how much flow of gas goes to the welder. You want this at about 20 or 30 CFH, which is cubic feet per hour. On the front here, you choose your material that you're welding. You press the button, it goes to steel, stainless, chromoly. You press the button again to go to aluminum. The difference is steel is DC, direct current, and aluminum is AC, alternating current. So it's the type of current the welder uses to weld. Then you have here material thickness. So the thickness of the material you're welding, let's say we're welding 1/8 of an inch. So you go up here, it should be 100 amps. So you can turn this knob down to about 100 amps. Doesn't have to be precise. This is the maximum that you'll get while welding. TIG welding stands for tungsten inert gas. So this tip, this piece of metal sticking out of the torch handle, is tungsten metal. And this, when you bring it close to your workpiece and start the electricity flow, the electricity flows through this cable and then it creates an arc from the tungsten to the workpiece, goes through the workpiece to the grounding cable, back to the welder. So when you turn it on, it completes the circuit, the electrical circuit, and if there's a gap here, there will be an arc jumping from the tip of the tungsten to the workpiece. This arc will be very bright, and so you have to wear a helmet that is dark so you can see what you're doing. And also it's very hot, so you have to wear protective gear. And that heat melts the metal together. The pedal down here turns on the flow of electricity, and the farther you press down, the more current you get in the circuit. And the more current you get, the hotter the arc becomes. So you start off very low, and then you increase the current, which increases the heat, and then you can decrease during welding. You can control how hot the arc is. The first step is to make sure your parts are clean. So you use Scotch-Brite to clean the areas that you're going to weld. This cleans off the oxide layer that's on aluminum. For steels, there could be oils or paint that you have to clean off before welding. The cleaner it is, the easier it will be to weld. You then need to set up your workpiece, clamp it to the table, locate the part you're going to weld in the position you want it welded. You can't be holding it like this. You need both hands available while welding. So you set it up, and then you can weld while the clamps are holding it. So once you're ready to weld, you have the filler rod, which is the same material that you're welding. Aluminum rod for welding aluminum, steel rod for welding steel. You create the arc between the tungsten and the part by pressing on the pedal. You create a puddle of liquid metal, and then you dip the rod into that puddle to help create more metal where you want the weld. And then you slowly move this puddle down the path you want to weld by continuing to add rod. Be aware that as you're welding, the workpiece becomes very hot. Before you're ready to weld, you need to make sure you have the correct safety gear. This is an auto-darkening welding helmet. This lens has sensors that as soon as the arc is bright enough, the shield will go dark, and then you can weld. So you put it over your head and adjust the strap here until it fits nicely, and it can flip up and down easily. You then need shielding on your arms because the light from the arc is very bright and will burn your arms. So these are leather shields. And then you put on welding gloves. Now you're ready to weld. So when you're ready to weld, you want to tack the piece that you're welding on. So you tack it here, here, then you rotate it around, tack it here and here to hold this piece in position when you weld this whole section. If you don't, when you weld this, the heat will make this part bend up. So you want to tack it in many places and then you do the weld seams. All right, cover. So before you start welding, you want to lower your shield and then say cover loudly so people know not to look. And you have to let people around you know that when you say cover to not look at the welding arc. Now I'm going to tack it right here. Cover. If you're planning on welding to this tack, you want to hold the torch here after letting go of the pedal because there's a post flow of gas that will shield the area to keep it from oxidizing. Now that I've tacked it in this corner and this corner, I'm going to weld this entire seam and fill as I go. So I'm going to push this puddle and put the filler rod into the puddle as I go, moving along this edge until I get to here. I'll now demonstrate. Cover. And that's what a proper weld should look like. If it's too bulging, so if the weld sticks out too much, then it's not enough heat. And the metal, the filler rod is just melted on top of the metal. If it's concave the other way, then it's too hot and the metal has seeped into the base material. So you kind of want a slight dome here and these little ridges along like this. So while you're welding, you want to make sure that the tungsten, this tip of the tungsten, does not touch your base material or your rod. So as you're welding, you want to make sure that you don't touch it like this or you touch it like this, because then the aluminum will get on top of the rod and you won't make a good arc between the tungsten and the aluminum. If it does happen, then you can take this tungsten out and take it to the grinder and grind the tip down again sharp. When you're done welding, you want to turn off the welder. So the first step is shutting the tank Now you want to relieve the pressure out of the system. So with the torch not near the grounding cable or your workpiece, press the pedal and it will flow the argon out of the welding system. And now you can shut it off. And it will turn on the fan to cool down the welder. Now you pack up everything and put it away. This was just a basic training video. There's much to learn about TIG welding and a lot of practice to get good at it. When you're done welding, make sure you put away the masks, the gloves, the welder, the table, the chair, all the components for welding. Make sure they're put away neatly before you're done.